Maybe I didn't treat you.
It was a summer night in 1973. Elvis Presley's sleek black Cadillac Convoy tore through the southern highway, slicing the silence of the night. Inside, laughter from friends mingled with Elvis's soft humming, blending with the steady roar of the engines. After nights of burning the stage, the crew was exhausted yet exhilarated, racing toward the next city's luxury hotel. That night, the sky was pitch black, the wind lashing against the windows. The endless highway stretched on, flanked only by empty fields and scattered woods. It seemed as though no trace of life existed until Elvis, sitting in the front seat, suddenly narrowed his eyes, his gaze locking on a faint figure by the roadside. "Hold it, stop," Elvis's sharp voice cut through the air, startling the driver into slamming the brakes. The entire line of Cadillacs screeched to a halt. Under the glare of the headlights, the sight froze, everyone in place. A little girl, no more than 8 years old, barefoot, her dress crumpled, her face streaked with tears. She trembled as she walked, eyes wide with terror, as if running from something unseen. "Good Lord," one of the men gasped. "What's she doing out here at this hour?" Without hesitation, Elvis flung open the door and stepped into the cold night air. The wind stung his face, but his heart burned hot. He moved slowly, carefully, afraid any sudden motion might scare her into bolting. "Sweetheart, don't be afraid. He won't hurt you." Elvis spoke, his deep voice gentle, like a lullaby. The girl lifted her head. In the harsh beam of light, she saw a tall figure in a long coat, blue eyes, steady and kind. Her body shook. But when she heard that soothing voice, her steps faltered. Tears spilled over as she whispered, I lost my mama." Elvis dropped to his knees on the dusty ground, placing both hands on her fragile shoulders, so thin, so breakable. It nearly crushed his heart. "What's your name?" "Lucy." "Lucy, don't worry. I'm going to take you home." Elvis scooped her up, cradling her against his chest. Her body was ice cold, her heartbeat fluttering like a trapped bird. Holding her tighter, he turned back to his stunned entourage. "Call the local sheriff. Find this child's parents." Elvis' voice rang out, firm and urgent. In the dim glow of the headlights, the image of the king of rock and roll carrying a lost little girl shook everyone to silence. No one knew how long Lucy had been wandering the highway. No one knew what had driven her out into the dangerous night. But everyone realized one thing had Elvis not seen her. Lucy might have vanished into the darkness forever. That night, the convoy of Cadillacs did not continue its journey. Instead, they pulled into a nearby small town, headlights blazing in the town square, summoning help. News spread like wildfire, and soon the townsfolk gathered, stunned to see Elvis Presley, the man they only knew through records and concert stages, gently holding a frightened child in his arms, his face etched with the worry of a father. Before hundreds of tearful eyes, Elvis placed Lucy back into her mother's embrace, a desperate woman who came running, crying uncontrollably as she clutched her daughter. The mother's sobs blended with applause, with the tears of an entire community. What seemed like a small act became an unforgettable memory for that little town. And Lucy, the child who wandered the highway at midnight, became living proof of the tenderness inside the heart of the man the world called the King. Years later, Lucy, the little girl, lost on the roadside that night, had grown into a young woman. The story of that summer evening in 1973 when Elvis Presley stopped an entire Cadillac convoy to save her, was etched not only in her memory, but in the heart of the small town where she was born. Whenever she closed her eyes, Lucy could still recall the blinding headlights, the gentle face of the man the world called the king, and the warmth of his arms holding her as if she were his own lost child. In that moment, fear melted away, replaced by a strange, overwhelming peace. Throughout her childhood, friends would ask, "Did Elvis Presley really carry you?" Lucy would smile and nod, yet only she knew the depth of that moment, the feeling of being rescued when the world seemed to have abandoned her. News of the event spread across the town like wildfire. People whispered that Elvis hadn't just saved a child, he had reminded them all that fame, bright lights, and roaring crowds meant nothing without compassion. That night, many said, "We didn't just see Elvis the singer, we saw Elvis the man." Lucy grew up with that memory as her anchor. Whenever life became uncertain, she recalled Elvis's strong yet tender embrace. There were times she wanted to quit school, times she almost gave in to hardship. But in her mind, she always heard his deep, steady voice, "Don't be afraid, I'm going to take you home." Those words became her invisible compass, guiding her through the storms of life. When Elvis passed away in August of 1977, the small town was shrouded in grief. Lucy, then just a 12-year-old girl, quietly laid a single white flower at his photo in the town square. She wept uncontrollably, for to her, Elvis was not a distant idol, but the man who had taken her hand in the darkest night. As years passed, Lucy left her hometown and became a schoolteacher. In her classroom, she would sometimes tell her students about the man who stopped the world just to save one child. The children listened in awe. And when they asked, "Was it really Elvis?" Miss Lucy, she would simply smile and nod, her eyes shimmering with the same light she had seen that night. Back in her hometown, a small plaque was erected on the roadside where Elvis had stopped his car. It bore the words, "Here." On a summer night in 1973, Elvis Presley stopped his convoy to save a lost child. Some acts of kindness last forever. Each time Lucy returned home, she stopped at that place, standing still, her heart swelling with memory. She whispered as if Elvis could still hear, "I made it home. Elvis, just like you promised." The story of that summer night in 1973, when Elvis Presley stopped his entire convoy to save a lost little girl, did not remain only in Lucy's memory or in the hearts of her small town. It began to spread outward like a quiet but steady wave, touching the hearts of thousands, then millions. At first, it was just a tale whispered in coffee shops, churches, and morning markets. That night, I saw Elvis holding Lucy in his arms. An old man would repeat with trembling voice. The local newspaper published a small article with the simple headline, "The Man Who Stopped the World for a Child." No one imagined that article would one day be framed and hung in the town hall, a living testament to kindness. Then, a well-known journalist happened to pass through the town. Hearing the murmurs about the king of rock and roll stopping on the highway, he began to interview locals, photograph the commemorative plaque by the roadside, and brought the story to a national paper overnight. Millions of readers across America learned of what seemed like a small event. What made the story remarkable was not just the name Elvis Presley, but the sheer humanity of the act. A man at the peak of fame, with convoys of cars and guards around him, still willing to step onto the dark roadside and cradle a child. That single moment convinced millions that behind the glitter, Elvis carried a heart that never lost its gentleness. Years later, when Elvis passed away, newspapers did not only recall his legendary shows and immortal songs, they also retold Lucy's story. In one eulogy, a journalist wrote, "Elvis Presley didn't just change music, he changed lives. Sometimes with acts the world may call small, but for the person touched, they were the entire universe." Lucy, grown into adulthood, was often invited to television programs to share her memory. Each time, her voice quivered with tears. She would say, "That night, Elvis didn't just return a child to her mother. He gave an entire town its faith back that love still exists." The story reached far beyond America. Newspapers in Europe and Asia translated it, calling Elvis the man who could stop the world. Visitors to Graceland often grew silent when they learned of the small plaque by the roadside, marking the spot of that night, carrying home with them the belief that music and compassion can save souls. From then on, when artists were asked what moved them most about Elvis, they didn't just mention the music, they recalled Lucy's story. Proof that the greatest power of an artist is not in the spotlight, but in the moments he touches a human heart. After that summer night in 1973, when Elvis Presley carried Lucy in his arms, many thought it would fade as just another touching moment. But for Elvis, it became a permanent mark on his soul, a gentle flame he carried until the end of his life. Close friends recalled that from then on, Elvis changed. He no longer rushed off stage after shows. Instead, he lingered, walking along the front rows to shake hands and speak with fans, especially children. Once consumed by the whirlwind of fame, Elvis began to slow down, to truly see the faces in the crowd. One evening backstage, Charlie Hodge, his confidant, found Elvis sitting in silence for hours, eyes distant. When asked why, Elvis whispered, "Charlie, that night, holding Lucy, I didn't feel like Elvis Presley the star. I felt like just a man, and I realized maybe the true worth of my life isn't in the cheers, but in the moments I can bring peace to a single heart." From then on, Elvis made small but meaningful changes in every tour. He asked organizers to invite orphans and sick children to sit close to the stage. He sent messages saying music isn't just to be heard, it's to be felt, to heal. He also began keeping a short journal, something he had rarely done. On one yellowed page, friends later found these words, scribbled, "I can sing to the whole world. But if a lost child needs my arms, that is the moment I truly live." Those around Elvis noticed the tenderness in his actions. Once, he stopped a show for several minutes, ensuring security carried out a fainting boy safely. Another time, he gave his sweat-soaked scarf to a teenager sobbing in the front row. All these gestures carried the echo of that night with Lucy, the night Elvis realized that the artist and the man within him were no longer separate. Deep inside, Elvis also found redemption for himself. In his final years, weighed down by loneliness, illness, and addiction, he would tell friends when the pain grew heavy, "I remember Lucy's eyes. I remember what it felt like to hold that fragile life in the dark. It makes me believe that even if I've lost my way, I was once a guiding star for someone." Perhaps it was Lucy's memory that kept Elvis's heart from falling completely into darkness. It remained a flickering candle, reminding him that love and faith endure even when the stage lights have gone out. In the years that followed, as the story of Elvis and Lucy spread across America and beyond, it ceased to be just a private memory. It became a message, a quiet yet powerful reminder from Elvis to the world of music and to those who loved him. In rare interviews, when asked about the most unforgettable moment of his career, Elvis did not speak of sold-out nights in Las Vegas or the legendary concert in Hawaii. Instead, he recalled the small town where he stopped his Cadillac Convoy to carry a lost little girl. His words were slow, his eyes lit with honesty. Sometimes, the most important thing isn't the applause, it's the eyes of a child who believes you won't leave them behind. That statement appeared in newspapers nationwide, silencing even those who were never Elvis fans. It made many young artists realize that art was not only about glory, but about responsibility. Several singers later admitted that Elvis's story changed how they performed. They began to look into the audience with different eyes, no longer seeing just a sea of strangers, but individual faces, each heart perhaps clinging to something they desperately needed. For audiences, Lucy's story became proof that music truly could save. Elvis was no longer seen merely as the king of rock and roll, but as an artist who used his heart to build bridges with his fans. A music critic once wrote, "After that night, Elvis was no longer just an immortal voice. He became the image of kindness, a rarity in a world of glittering entertainment." As an adult, Lucy once stood before a crowd at an educational conference, fighting tears. She said, "Elvis taught me that a single moment of love can change a child's entire life. I carry that lesson into my classroom. With every student I teach, I want them to know they are never abandoned." In the last letter Elvis wrote to his fan club before his passing, he left these simple words: "The music may stop, the lights may fade, but kindness, if you keep it, will echo forever." Those words were later engraved on a memorial plaque outside Graceland. Visitors from around the world stop to read them, and each feels as though a faint melody rises within a music that surpasses sound and goes straight to the heart. Decades have passed since that summer night in 1973, when Elvis Presley stopped his convoy to save a lost little girl. Elvis is gone, and Lucy has grown old in the quiet seasons of her later years. Yet the story has never faded. It continues to be told whispered along American highways, preserved in books, documentaries, and above all, in the hearts of millions. Elvis's greatest legacy was not only in immortal songs or in concerts that shook the world. It lived in the moment he stepped out of the spotlight to hear the cry of a child. A single act of kindness, small in scale but timeless in impact. Lucy, now a grandmother, still tells her grandchildren about the man who stopped the world just to save her on a dark night. The children sit wide-eyed, as if listening to a fairy tale. But it is no fairy tale. It is truth, a truth that assures them kindness still exists, even in a harsh world. In the little town where it happened, the roadside plaque honoring Elvis and Lucy still stands, weathered by sun and rain, a monument that refuses to fade. Travelers stop, bow their heads in silence. Some weep, some softly hum "Love Me Tender," a prayer for human compassion. And at Graceland, inside the rooms where Elvis once lived, notes remain where he had written reminders to himself about the value of kindness. To those who make the pilgrimage, it is not merely the home of a star, but a message that whispers, "The music may end, but a heart that loves will echo forever." Elvis left this world in August of 1977, yet his true immortality lies not only in his voice, but in proving that a great artist does not just sing for the world, he stops to sing for a single heart. And it was in that moment, more than any stage, that Elvis Presley became eternal. Amid the applause and blinding lights, Elvis chose to stop for one small heart. And in that moment, we are reminded Legends are not written by music alone, but by the kindness that echoes long after the music fades.